The majority of people that follow my study are over the age of 55 years old. Well, I hate to say it, but I passed 55 a long time ago. And what is important to us people is we've seen the changes. We've seen the progression of Satan's system on earth. And this is what the Mystery Babylon is all about. It's about a system that's progressing to a point where it's ultimately heading into doom. But before it does, it is trying to pull all us believers into that system so that we rebel against God, just as the system itself has done. So today we're going to be looking at part 2 on Babylon the Great Harlot. We are going to look at the relationship between the harlot and the beast, and we are going to see some tough verses to interpret that will hopefully prepare us when we understand what they are pointing to, prepare us for the times that lie ahead. My name is Vince, and thanks for joining me today. Revelation 17 has a theme here, and that is the judgment of the great harlot. It is this relationship between the harlot and the beast that's ultimately going to bring about a judgment on the entire people of this earth. Now you will recognize in Revelation 17, 1 and 2 these words. Then one of the seven angels who had seven bowls came and talked with me, saying to me, Come, I will show you, don't miss it, the judgment of the great harlot who sits on many waters, with whom the kings of the earth committed fornication, and the inhabitants of the earth were made drunk with the wine of her fornication. Now, this has given us the reason why a judgment has been pronounced on her. Other people have entered into intimacy with the wrong system, with the wrong people. So anything that supersedes our relationship, having a proper relationship with God, is being in harlotry and in fornication. Now, this concept of fornication first appears in Deuteronomy 31:16. And Moses is being talked to by the Lord, and it says in the verse, Behold, you will rest with your fathers, and this people will rise and, don't miss it, play the harlot with the gods of foreigners of the land, where they go to be amongst him, and they will forsake me and break my covenant which I made with them. So this concept of fornication is not new. It is Old Testament based, even though we're seeing it toward the end of the tribulation period. We could see it was going on even in earlier times. The issue here is an association with a system, a culture, a people in opposition and rebellion to God is fornication. In Revelation 17, you probably noticed that it said that the harlot was sitting on many waters in the verse we just looked at. This also ties us back to Jeremiah 51:13. So this becomes important. What is the idea of many waters? Well, we actually have it somewhat defined here in Revelation 17:15. And this is what he says to John, the angel speaking here. The waters which you saw where the harlot sits are peoples, multitudes, nations, and tongues. So you could see that this woman has a place over other peoples globally. So this is a global system that we are looking at. Now, to fully comprehend what is going on here, we have to recognize what is happening. And it says in verse 2 of 17 that the kings of the earth committed fornication with her. In other words, it started with the kings getting behind it and working this system into play because they got involved. The leaders get involved first. Now they are going to allow her, the system that we're talking about, the system of Babylon, to influence the other peoples. And how are these people influenced? It says they were made drunk with the wine of her fornication. Under the word drunk means, simply put, under the influence of. The word wine is symbolically used in the Bible to represent the literal of a metaphor driving a doctrine or message, and because they were consumed and influenced by the message, they went into a improper relationship, leaving a proper relationship that they should have with God, exchanging it for a system that will ultimately bring about their doom. Revelation 17 actually defines what the great harlot is. In verse 18 of the chapter, it says, "The woman who you saw is that great city which reigns over the kings of the earth. Therefore, Babylon, the harlot, is a great city." Now, taking this within the context it was written by Apostle John, many decided that this city is Rome. They also use the following verse where it says, "Here is the mind which has wisdom. The 7 heads are 7 mountains on which the woman sit." Therefore, this city is believed to sit on 7 mountains or 7 hills. Now, there's a problem with the Rome interpretation. A later interpretation came out about the city possibly being Mecca. There is also a problem with Mecca, but many thought about it. It also is on 7 mountains or 7 hills, and it is so anti-Israel, it would make perfect sense, especially with all the surrounding nations represented in the Bible opposing them. Now, what we have to understand, if we stop right there, we would be fine, but we can't stop there. We have to take into consideration what verse 10 says. And verse 10 says, "They are 7 kings, 5 have fallen, one is, and the other has not yet come. And when he comes, he must remain a little while." So here's something interesting. The 7 heads are 7 mountains. 2 figuratives are used to describe what it is. Then it goes out there and it says, "They are 7 kings." Therefore, the heads represent mountains. In a figurative sense, mountains, if you saw part 1 of the Great Harlot, you would recognize that is talking about it being a kingdom. So therefore, there are 7 kingdoms on which the woman sits. And it says that 5 have fallen. Okay, so we know 7 kings would initiate 7 kingdoms. Which are the kingdom? Well, let's look at the ones that are fallen first. We have Egypt, we have Assyria, we have Babylon and Persia and Greece, but then it says one is, that is Rome. These cities are commonly believed to be what is represented by the 6 heads, the 5 that had fallen, and Rome, which was active at that particular time, the one that is. Now, it says the other is not and is yet to come. This is the Antichrist kingdom. Therefore, this rule will stem from all the geographical areas that are included in the first 6 kingdoms, not completely necessarily, but most of the geographical areas, and then it would add to it a 7. And that is only going to happen for a short time. Let's take a look at Revelation 17:11 through 14. And it says, "The beast which was and is not is himself also an 8th, and is one of the 7. And he goes to destruction." Okay, good. We all know the Antichrist is going to come to his end. Verse 14 tells us how he goes to his destruction. But when we look at these verses over here, we see something else, that he is a 7 and an 8. Well, if one of the heads there that he controls is the 7th kingdom or a 7th kingdom, then how could he be an 8? From looking at this, the best 2 possibilities that I see are these 2. The first one is to take a look at the context. He was, is not, to come. So to come would represent his kingdom at the 7th time if he was once here before, and was would suggest that he had a kingdom once before that is no longer operative. Well, why wouldn't it be included with the 7? Well, probably because the best candidate for this would be the fallen angel Ahazel, who progressed the Babylon system during the time before the flood. He was the one that instituted certain things on earth with 100 angels, and there came about the destruction of the system when man was in such rebellion that God had to flood the earth. Now, taking into consideration, there could be another good possibility, and I don't know if either one of these are right. This is what I'm looking at, but keep in mind, my first understanding was because I look at things from an Old Testament perspective, from how our ancient people would have interpreted the Bible. But the other option would be for the eight to be a kingdom that exists on earth at the time of these seven. He is able to go and replace the ruler of the seventh kingdom, take his spot, and combine the two kingdoms into one. And ultimately, from that, you would get 10 other rulers that will come on the scene. How do we know that? Verse 12 tells us that. And the 10 horns which you saw are 10 kings who have not yet received the kingdom, but they will receive authority as kings with the beast for 1 hour. Now, this is very, very important to understand. Now, the authority of these two that is given to them is because there are 10 rulers with him. 3 of the rulers he will defeat. He will take the spot of one and occupy his throne on the kingdom, probably enter in his kingdom along with him, the eighth one, and then he will eventually defeat 2 others, but ultimately he will put in 3 other sub-rulers, giving us a total of 10 rulers. But this is short term. According to Revelation 13, this is the same beast we saw there. The only difference is an addition of the word scarlet being the color of the beast in this chapter, showing that it is progressing. Now, at that particular time, God is going to give these men authority for 1 hour. That doesn't mean 60 minutes. It means basically it is short. And we know from Daniel that their kingdom will last a total of 3.5 years. Now, it tells us in verse 13 that they have one purpose. They give their power and authority to the beast. In other words, they are supporting him in everything that he asks them to do. They no longer operate from apart from the Antichrist. They have become a unity. And for this reason, according to Daniel chapter 7, this beast will cease to exist, and so will all its rulers. Now, in verse 14, we are told that he comes to his destruction in verse 11. Verse 14 then is telling us how he comes to his destruction. They will wage war against the Lamb, and the Lamb will overcome them because he is Lord of Lords, King of Kings, and those who are with him, with the Lamb, are the called, the chosen, and the faithful. Therefore, the Antichrist kingdom will end and cease to exist. Let's look at Mystery Babylon, the mother of harlots. Now we're going to take verses 3 to 5 in Revelation 17, and let's do it verse by verse. Now understand what we are looking at in verse 3 is telling us of the relationship between the beast and the woman. Now, here it says, he carried me away in the spirit into a wilderness, and I saw a woman sitting on a scarlet beast full of blasphemous names, having 7 heads and 10 horns. Now, the focus here is on both. And again, we talked about there is this beast, great harlot relationship. Let's focus on the beast, and then we'll come back to the other word. You will notice that the beast is full of blasphemous names. In other words, it is showing its outright defiance toward God. It hates God. It is saying bad things about God. And this is this governmental kingdom that we were talking about earlier. And the 7 heads, we recollect, these are 7 mountains or kingdoms. So these 7 kingdoms combined, having in the future one day, hopefully we're not there soon, 10 horns, which are the 10 rulers. So this rebellious kingdom who stands against God now is doing something. And John wants us to know something. So he tells us that a spirit in the spirit has moved him into a wilderness. Now, this is important because if you were a first century Jewish person, you would understand that once you have been deported to the wilderness, you are operating outside the realm of God. See, the land of Israel was considered God's cosmic geography. It was his controlled land. It belonged to him. But once you got into the wilderness, now you went into a realm that was operated by the fallen angels. It had nothing to do with God. And he wants to show us that this kingdom and this woman operate outside the realm of God. They have nothing to do with him. Now, the woman is sitting on a scarlet beast. The woman represents evil. And I had brought up the scarlet beast in the last video, but I didn't really focus on the word scarlet because the word scarlet is really tied to blood sacrifice. So in other words, if we understand we are cleansed by the blood of Jesus Christ, not only does it cleanse us, but it gives us protection. And that is the point of this word here, is to show that this kingdom protects this system. Oddly enough, later on, we're going to find out that it will destroy this system as well. It's like Rahab. Rahab had a bunch of spies that she protected in Jericho and helped escape. And they told her that they would protect her family. They would not harm her as long as she had a scarlet cord hanging in her window. And therefore, the spies promised that she would be protected because of the scarlet cord. Now, let's move further. Let's give more attention to the woman here. In verse 4, the woman was clothed in purple and scarlet and adorned with gold and with precious stones and pearls, having in her hand a gold cup. Let me stop here for a second because this is the portrait of the woman that she is trying to give to the world. She is trying to come across as something she is not. And what it says here is that she was clothed in purple. Purple showing that she is luxury. She's offering the people luxury. It says she's clothed in scarlet too. She's offering the people protection. She is adorned with gold. What does gold mean? Genuineness. It's been tested, it's been proven. And it talks about the fact that she has precious stones and pearls, that there is value. It is a total misrepresentation of what Babylon is. And so it is a mystery to them. They can't understand it. And then it goes on to tell us that there is this cup. This cup is supposed to be genuine because it's gold. But a cup always has a task behind it or a role. And in her case, it is full of abominations and of unclean things of her immorality. Do you remember when the two brothers were told by Christ, could they drink from the cup that he was going to drink from? And they said yes, and he said they will. In other words, the role they were given was to suffer a martyr's death. The role this woman is given is to appear like she has a cup that is genuine, yet it is full of things that are abominable to God, abomination, things that are unclean, and it drives the immorality from her to others. Now, when we look at verse 5, it says, upon her forehead a name was written, a mystery. Stop there. First century Jewish person would understand a mystery is something that God has kept hidden. It is not known to us at that time. The system becomes clearer as it's evolving, and it will even become more profound and precise and be more evident by what we will see as the system progresses all the way up until the time of the mystery. Now, he calls it Babylon the Great, the mother of harlots. Let's take this in pieces. Babylon the Great. Go look later at Revelation 14:8, because you have an angel shouting, and it tells you that the reason why that angel is shouting is because Babylon the Great has fallen. Now, to understand here what is going on, this is that great city that controls the kings of the earth, not just in the time of Revelation, but always. And what the angel was pronouncing is basically this. He's flying in mid-heaven, showing the angels have control of the atmosphere. And the angels that were cast out of heaven now have lost control of the upper atmosphere. And therefore, the Babylon that we are going to see is an extension of the system that collapsed in the atmosphere and now becomes operative in the human, visible, earthly realm. And the reason why it gives us the label of mother of harlot is to show its origination and the fact that it is the source of all idolatry, everything that extends outside of worshiping the one and true God, and also all the abominations of the earth. So all the false teachings that have gone on throughout the ages all stem from this system of Babylon that is moving downward, now no longer operative in the upper atmosphere, in the invisible realm, but has progressed down to the earthly realm. And the reason we know that, because in Revelation 14:9, it tells us that people, even though the angel had said, fallen, fallen is Babylon, people on earth were still taking the mark of the beast. Okay, and so the mystery continues. The harlot wants our blood. She is out for blood. Listen to what Revelation 17:6 says. And I saw the woman drunk with the blood of the saints and with the blood of the witnesses of Jesus. And when I saw her, I wondered greatly. Okay, woman drunk with blood. It almost sounds like a vampire, doesn't it? I want your blood. Listen what she is actually doing. She is consumed with the elimination of those who oppose her organizational system that will operate from Iraq in the city of Babylon. So she is eliminating her believer. The believers are put into two different categories. The first category is the saints. Therefore, these are anybody who's refusing to take the mark of the beast. In such case, the woman will be so influenced by the fact that she has opposition, she will eliminate those people. Those people that are God's witnesses here are the 144,000 and Elijah and Enoch. The 144,000 are the ones driving the bus, warning people not to take the mark of the beast. They are martyred. They will die during that period. So will Elijah and Enoch also be martyred, and we know that just before the end of the tribulation period, a short time before Christ returns, they are resurrected. Now understand, this is all part of God's plan. Revelation 13:6-10, taking tidbits, this is what it says. And he, Antichrist, opened his mouth in blasphemy against God, and it was given to him to make war with the saints and to overcome them. Now understand, it is not the woman that is actually the one that is doing the killing, but it is the beast that she rides upon that are eliminating the saints and the witnesses. And if you notice, it was given to him to make war with the saints and to overcome him, shows that God has given him permission to do so. And why this is so important is because it's part of God's plan. In verse 9, God is telling you, if you have an ear, let him hear. Anyone has an ear, let him hear. God wants you to pay attention to this. He's saying the same thing that he told the churches in Revelation 2 and 3. Listen to me. And then he gives these words. If anyone is destined for captivity, to captivity he goes. If anyone is killed with the sword he must be killed. Here is the perseverance and the faith of the saints. Therefore, God is simply saying, part of my plan. If you're destined to go into prison, off you go. If anyone's killed with the sword, part of my plan is you also must be killed with the sword. So he's simply saying you are believers in either one of these two cases, but the key is to persevere and have faith through it. Now let's take this one more verse to understand, because I want to give us believers a hope here, because we know from verse 14 that we will return with the Lamb of God. We will return with the Lord Jesus Christ. And there is a destiny to this great harlot, because those that get into the system, that system is going to be quickly eliminated. It is not going to last very long. And this is what it says. And the 10 horns which you saw and the beast, these will hate the harlot. Wait a minute. They're the ones that are pushing the harlot. They're the ones she's riding on. And then you say they hate her. And then it goes on to say they will make her desolate and naked and will eat her flesh and will burn her up with fire. Well, why do they do that? The reason why they do it is more or less because God is going to bring the system to an end, and he is going to allow the people that created this system, going to allow people who hated this system and pushed this system begin its destruction. Now, what do I mean by begin its destruction? Because Babylon, according to the Bible, will be destroyed in 3 ways. The first way is mentioned here, by the 10 horns that will burn it and expose and make her desolate. The second way, according to Isaiah 13, the peoples of the world will come against it. And then also it talks about a great earthquake in Revelation that destroys this. So ultimately, we will cover this in the future. We'll get in more details. This system will come to an end. Think about subscribing. Think about giving us a thumbs up. And consider that we will still be talking about Babylon the Great, the mother of harlot, in a future video. But for the next time, we will be looking at the false prophets and Elijah and Enoch as they near the end of their ministry. Consider these videos that are popping up on screen here. Also, I want to thank you for joining me today. Again, my name is Vince, and the next video will be out in about 2 weeks.